Hi, welcome back to Life is a Treasure podcast. I'm your hostess, Michelle Durand, and you're listening to episode number 48. Today, I am joined with a beautiful guest. Her name is Karli Kershaw, and she is a professional love and relationship coach. Karli specializes in supporting strong, intelligent women heal their heart, feel confident in their skin and themselves, and go after the life and love they desire. She is an expert in all heart fundamentals: love, life, heartbreak, relationships, and most importantly, the relationship we have with ourselves. Over the past 16 years, she has helped hundreds of women release patterns of anxiety, heal heartbreak, remove emotional and mental blocks, identify self-worth, confidence, a healthy lifestyle, and ultimately show up more intentionally in their life. Over the past 18 years, Karli has worked with master teachers and coaches. For 10 years, she owned and operated OM Shanti Yoga in Chicago. She is a holistic nutritionalist, created Cleanse for Vitality. She facilitates masterminds and retreats, wellness programs, and workshops. It is such an honor to have her on the show today. So hi, Karli. Welcome to Life is a Treasure podcast.
I'm so happy to be here, Michelle. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. Thank you for spending time with me and my audience. So Karli, I'd like for you to start off, if you don't mind, by sharing your story of what brought you to this place.
This place of being a love and relationship coach. And that's a long story. I believe we all connect through our story. So where do I begin? I was a mother at 17, and I grew up in a very religious society, and there was a lot of judgment and shame. And I always felt I had this internal knowing of things didn't feel right, always, from being a very young girl. And then I became a mother, and that became my role. And I was always trying to find myself outside of this role and what society told me I should be, shouldn't be. And so that was me going through life, being a mother, not understanding self, going through relationships, going through a lot of difficulties in my life. And I hit a sort of a rock bottom very early, because I think I started this whole process early. So I started really exploring myself on a deep level. I started teaching yoga, or practicing yoga and understanding yogic philosophy, which is really understanding ourselves at a deep core, beyond our conditioning, beyond our beliefs. So that's where it really started for me. I was really unhappy in my life. I was looking outside of myself, and I knew there was something more. So when I started the exploration of self, that's where it started. And I started sharing my story with other women. I started bringing women into my home, teaching yoga, teaching yogic philosophy. And I would say, let's take the mask off. Let's sit in a circle and talk about life. And it was amazing to me that me being my truth, sharing my truth, it allowed space for other women to do so. There were tears. There was like, oh my gosh, I see myself in you. And I longed for this authenticity and this connection from a young girl. So that's kind of how it started. And then it evolved into my coaching practice. And because I grew up in such a judgmental society, and I can go on and on about that, I kind of broke free from that. I wanted to live free of the masks. I wanted to live free of what society told me, what my church told me, even what mom, dad told me. I wanted to be my truest self. So that's what I teach women, is to really show up authentically without shame, knowing that we are human beings. And so that is my process. And it's a long, we could be on this call the whole time, and I could tell you, I've gone through a lot in my life. I have, and I have no shame around it. Everything I know is and brought to me as a learning. So that is why I do the work that I do. I love empowering women to show up to the truth of who they are beyond their conditioning, whether it's church, society, mom, dad, and really empowering them to embody their wholeness and their worth, and Yeah, so that's why I do what I do. And like I said, that's just a really short little synopsis of my life. But there you
So
go.
beautiful. I love that. I love how you help other women to go through that experience that you went through. And I'm curious, what was the thing in your life that caused you the most shame?
Oh, you went right to it, didn't you? You know what? I cannot say I can't answer that because I don't hold shame, and I honestly can say that.
Mhm.
I grew up with a mother, and in this sort of faith I'm talking about, that I'm this huge spirit. I'm this divine, wild spirit, and my mother was as well. But she hid so much of herself, and I even knew at such a young age I could see it. And through her whole life, she was this beautiful essence of a human being, but she hid so much of herself and she was so ashamed about her mistakes. So I chose at a very young age to not hold shame. So I share my story completely unedited. And this is what I bring to my clients is, so I really can't say that I hold shame, even though I was a mother at 17. I got pregnant, had to get married, all those things. And I've been divorced a couple of times, but I don't hold shame. Because you know what? This is the human experience, and we are all learning, and we're learning and moving through difficulties of life with what we were taught as little children, what we were taught, what we know. So when I teach this to my clients, they understand, and there's this compassion piece of, why should I hold shame about something that, that I learned or developed a sense of self or lack thereof? It's like this compassion piece, or we're in a space in our life where we have to make a really hard decision, and we make it. And it's like, okay, that's where I was at that point in my life. So I can say this, Michelle, I really don't have shame. I share my story completely.
So it sounds like as you were growing up and you saw your mother as a beautiful spirit, but yet
Mm-hmm.
you saw her holding back because of shame. And it's like instead of you following her path, you she reflected that, but it's like you saw it and realized, I don't want to do that. Is that how you feel or felt then?
Yeah, absolutely. I think
Okay.
I believe that we either follow suit, right? We do what we do, or we can observe it and then choose not to. And it's not that I honor my mother. She's passed, but I felt sorry when she passed that she couldn't be her beautiful self, that she was hiding in this shame. And so, yes, I saw her pretending. I knew from a very young age, she put on the lipstick and the smile, but I knew that it wasn't her truth. And so, yes, I chose to not to dishonor my mother or to say she wasn't good enough. It was simply, I could see it. And so my mother was a beautiful reflection of what I chose not to be.
Yeah, I see it as your mother is a beautiful woman and you knew her better than anyone because you were her little girl.
Mhm.
And you knew that despite whatever she'd been through and whatever shame she might have been holding, she was still this beautiful, wonderful woman. And I'm curious to know, because you do work with so many women that do carry shame, why do you think so many women carry shame and don't let it go? Like your mother, why do you think she carried that till her deathbed?
Yeah, because as I said, because we are conditioned as little girls, what is right and wrong, what is acceptable, unacceptable, what is pretty, what is ugly. I mean, there's for girls especially, and I would say girls because because we all turn into women. There's I was told to be seen and not heard. So for me to have my opinions, there would be shame around that. For me to take up space, there would be shame around that. So and for my mother, it was the same. And she was this beautiful wild spirit because she was in this religion and brought up in this way, the same way. She pushed that part of herself down, right? And so she didn't embrace it. And so there was shame when this wild spirit would come out. And so that I believe that is why we learn as little girls that we should behave this way, that we should not behave that way, that and a lot of us have shame around our body, and that's how we develop that, and it's reflected often in our mother, or just what the image of beauty is. And for me, I was told I was beautiful constantly, and I fought that because I didn't ever want to I didn't want to just show up in that. I wanted to be so much deeper than that. But my mom was projecting that all onto me. That's a whole other story. And I'm going off in a tangent. Yes, I do. But I do believe that, no, I know that we develop our sense of self when we are little children. Like I said, right and wrong, acceptable, unacceptable, how girls should be. And if we don't fit into this idea of what mom and dad and society wants, then we feel guilty, we feel shameful. And that is not true. And that is why we carry so much shame. And then when we grow up and we go out into the world and we're trying to figure out who we are, and then we do things that go against what we learned, then we shame ourselves. We shame ourselves. We shame our body. We shame our sexuality. We shame, our intelligence even, because we're supposed to fit into what we learned as a little girl.
And do you think that along with what we learned growing up, do you feel like society also places so much pressure on what's right and wrong and what should be, it shouldn't be, that allows women to just stay in shame?
Yes, I think so. As I said, I think things are changing, which is beautiful to witness. And I'm so grateful to be a part of that. But yes, for sure, because women are supposed to be, the nurturing, the stay at home, the take care of. I mean, these are old ways of thinking, and I know it's changing. But yes, the women should look a certain way. We should act a certain way. We shouldn't speak up and be loud and all of these different things. So for sure, it's conditioning through our parents and absolutely through society.
Yeah, I see that too. And that's why I'm so honored to hold this space with you and to share this message with the world, because I've lived in shame for most of my life, and it was horrible. And, everyone's experience is different. And I know you witnessed with your mother. And so besides just, including your mother and other women, how does living with shame show up in their life?
Well, it sounds like you know that.
Yeah.
Already, and I don't know if you want to share your story, but I think it shows up in, first of all, when you have shame about yourself, you often put on masks. You put on artifice that are false. And when you do that, you can really never love who you are. You can never show up authentically in life. You can't experience authentic relationships. And so that is how shame shows up. And then you also, it's an interesting thing that I found with women. You give of yourself to make up for this shame in ways that you shouldn't. Like you give of your time, you give of your body. A lot of women that carry shame are very promiscuous, are very, overtly promiscuous, and they're still searching, even though they have so much shame around their sexuality, their sensuality. You put yourself out there, because what we believe about ourselves, life mirrors that back. So if I feel, and I'm just, giving you an example, I don't feel this way, but if someone feels shameful about being sexual, and they know that they're a sexual being and that's their innate self, and yet they were raised to think that that is dirty, as I was, dirty and bad and naughty and all of those things, there is a part of you that will continue to have promiscuous sex, but then it will feed into the shame. So it's this constant cycle of denying who you are, but you will do it, and then you will feel shame. So I want to say one more thing about that is, what we hold a lot of shame about is our shadow side. It's part of being human, though. And I was taught to not be sexual, that it was dirty, all those things. But so I have had to really invite in that part of my human self and not have shame around it. But we have a lot of shame around our shadow side, which is simply being human, having anger, being sexual. I could go on and on, but these things that we avoid or we deny parts of ourselves because our parents told us what was right and wrong. And so then when we actually live into what we are innately, what we are truthfully beyond what we were conditioned, then we do these things and then we have shame around it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. And
So
I
I
also,
really
yeah.
worked through that one. Yeah. Go ahead.
Wow. And as you were saying that, because, I've worked with women also who carry a lot of shame, and they find themselves, and myself included, in many abusive relationships because they deny themselves because of that part of them that they feel so ashamed of. They don't feel worthy of love. They don't feel worthy of respect. And then they get into a abusive relationship and they feel like that's what they deserve. And so I really feel like it is so complex and so deep, but there is an answer. It's like they don't have to live with the shame. And I love that that's what you do and that's your work, and you explain everything so beautiful. And this is a topic that's very hard to explain, especially when you're talking about shame.
Yeah.
And so you do a
Very
great
deep and
job.
wide. It's very deep and wide. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And a
And what,
cycle that how to break that cycle, how to free themselves from shame, because like you said, it is a cycle. And when you're on a cycle, it's like a hamster wheel. How do you think that women are able to free themselves from shame? How did you free yourself from not feeling shame?
well, first I want to answer the yes, it is a cycle. And yet it is interesting as human beings, this is what we do, as we do what's comfortable to us. So if we feel shameful, we are going to continue this pattern of shame. And it just because it feels comfortable. For us to break free of that shame is like, that doesn't make sense to us in our brain. So that's why we end up in that cycle. The first part of, and then you ask, how do we free ourselves from that shame, is actually embracing our shadow self, embracing those parts of us that we hold in shame. And so whether it is, a choice that we made in our past that we have shame about, or a part of us that we have denied, that we actually embrace it. That is our freedom. And that part of ourself, whether it's a choice that we made, or like I said, a part we're hiding, that we say, that we hold ourselves with such love and compassion, and knowing that was part of our human experience, just being human. We made that choice, or we learned this from our parents, from conditioning, and we hold ourselves with compassion. It's not avoiding it, because when we continue to feel the shame and we avoid it, it perpetuates the shame, it perpetuates the pattern and the choices operating, like you said, from lack of worth or from shame. The freedom that is really leaning into. So I'll speak to it for myself to give you some sort of idea that I'm a very sensual, sexual person, but I was told as a child how dirty and wrong that was. And yet it's so interesting, because I saw my mother saying one thing and playing out a different thing. So I was so confused, but I was told that this is the way I should be. This is the way I should act. This is so when I learned, and I had so much shame around that part of me, which I think we all are innately that way if we're allowed to feel into that. So I had to, for me, it didn't play out in promiscuity. It did not. It played out in a different way, but I had to learn to know that was part of my shadow self, which isn't right or wrong, but embrace it and love it and bring it in and say it's okay. And it was compassion. So I had to heal that part within myself. So that is, I'm trying to explain it the best that I can, because it is a complicated thing, but it's really knowing that as a human being, there are so many facets to all of us. And we did, and I've used this word many times, deny our parts of ourselves because of what our parents told us, society told us is right and wrong. When we really break that mold and we say, no, this is who I am. And that's my work, as I do a lot of the inner child healing, a lot of the work. It's where you begin to integrate those parts of yourself. So I integrated the part of myself that was sensual, that was wild, that was free. I'm also very grounded, mind you. I don't mean to sound like I'm so, yeah. But I integrated those parts of myself, and I don't have shame around what someone told me was right or wrong.
Okay.
Yeah.
if you, I'm just curious. I wondered if you would like to, as an example,
Mhm.
we could sort of do like a little role play here where I am sharing with you that about my abortion experience and pretend, like just pretend role play that
Yeah.
I'm still in that place of feeling so much shame. I want
Mhm.
anybody to know, but yet it is my truth. It is what I went through. Would you like to just kind of give an example by us doing that? And that way, if anyone's listening who may have been through that, they can kind of understand better. Because when you say the shadow side, they might not know what that means, but I think if we explain it and bring it this way, maybe they can understand that my shadow side, you can help me understand too. Would my shadow side be the abortion experience in my situation?
So the shadow side, yes, thank you for that, clarifying that. It's just our humanness, honey. It's our
Okay.
humanness. Okay. It's stuff that we do, that we experience, again, that we hold shame, but it's the human experience. That's
Okay.
why I share my story and I invite that in. So yes, let's invite in your
Okay.
humanness and your story, but invite it in with such love and compassion. That's the
Okay.
key.
Would you like to do that? And maybe it'll
Yeah.
help some people who might be listening that are just really stuck where in that place and don't even know how to move forward.
Sure. So Michelle, I mean, tell me how your abortion makes you feel in your body. Just be with it for a minute.
Okay. My abortion makes me feel sad. It made me feel ashamed because I was I was confused. I was told that it was wrong, but I was also told that it was my right, and I could do that, and so it was a choice I had,
Mhm.
and I chose to go forward with it. But then afterwards, I felt a lot of pain and regret and shame, and I didn't want anyone to know what I did. So I suppressed it. I hid it. Okay, I lied to myself. And before I went in my mindset, I said, I'm just going to go in, have this done. When I leave, I'm going to be on my period. So it's like it never happened. Like I just can blot that out and I'll be like before, like I can just go from I have my period and then let's just erase that little space of, oops, I'm pregnant. I'm going to have abortion. But then I'm just going to go jump right over to, okay, now I'm on my period and I was never pregnant, but that's not how I felt. And
No.
so for years and years, I just carried around all of that shame because I didn't want anyone to know. But yet I felt like it's what I went through. It's part of me, like you
Yeah.
said, it was my experience. But I just had so much shame around it, mainly from society and other people judging me. I was afraid to be judged.
Right. And that is the biggest reason why people are very ashamed is being judged for who they
Yeah.
are. And yet the irony is we want to be seen for who we are in our truth, in all of our truth, in all of our human.
Yeah.
Well, first of all,
Yeah.
I'm sorry that you experienced that. I can't imagine. And that's often what we do. We think that we can turn off all the feelings and emotion that go with choices that we make, and then tomorrow will be a new day. But that's just
Yeah.
not that's part of the human experience. We can't. I mean, and if you were like to push it down, I'm sure it could manifest in so many ways. So I
It
appreciate
did.
you sharing your truth.
Okay.
That helps when we share our truth. That really does help us release ourselves of shame. So
Okay.
what I would say is to meet, how old were you?
I was like teenager.
Okay.
So late
So
teen.
so what I would say is the process that I take my clients through, and I know we don't have time here, is to see yourself at that age and
Mm,
see this young girl,
okay.
right? And
Mm,
see her with such love and compassion because now you're a grown woman, you can look back, right? And so it's harder, but that's what it would do is to actually visualize where you are at, see this beautiful young teenage girl. Look at the options that were there for you. Not many, right? It's a scary choice, right? It's a
yeah.
scary choice.
Yeah.
And then showing that girl such compassion
Okay.
and love and holding her. And here's the big piece is forgiving her.
That's the hard part.
Well, that is the process, is can you forgive that young girl that did not know, didn't have a lot of support, didn't have the answers? Can you forgive her?
Okay. So not forgiving yourself like where you are, who you are now, but
Oh no.
really trying to, okay. I think that's what maybe held me back for so long was, if I didn't like myself, it was hard to forgive myself.
No. That's the biggest piece. It's first, it's compassion. Compassion is so productive. Compassion in everything. And
Okay.
I have my clients, like I said, I would love for you to hold your younger self with such compassion and say, I forgive you. I forgive you for making that choice that you felt at the time was right. Right. And that's
Yeah.
all you knew at that time because of your beliefs, because of society. And that's okay. And forgive yourself.
Okay.
That is the biggest piece to our growth and healing, is forgiving ourselves. We don't need anyone else to forgive us. So and once we forgive ourselves, then we can release ourselves of the shame.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So see, the forgiveness is like the key to releasing yourself out of your shame prison.
Yes. The thing is that, again, not denying the truth,
Okay.
not denying what you did and try to make excuses. It was what it was
Okay.
in the time, and where you were then.
Yeah.
Right? Then
Yes.
showing self-compassion, knowing that you made the choice that was best then.
Okay.
Now, with this adult mind, maybe you would make a different choice, but it doesn't matter.
Okay.
We've got to go back to that little girl, because she was a little girl that had a big adult decision to make. And then, yes, holding her with such love and compassion and forgiving her. And knowing that it is part of the human experience.
Yes.
Right?
Because if I hadn't been through it, I wouldn't be able to help other women now and men now who are struggling in that area. So I do look back and say, there was a reason and there was a purpose that I went through this. And it wasn't just to cause me pain and shame and heartache and to keep me stuck in a prison that I held myself in for so many years. But once I started sharing publicly, it's true that shame went away because it was like, I have nothing to be ashamed of now.
That's
Everyone
right.
knows. And
That's
I'm not.
The piece, like I said, is sharing your truth.
Okay.
Because if you hide it, you're hiding behind masked falsehoods. And so that's why I share my truth. And yes, and then you do. And it's amazing. People say, oh my gosh, I experienced that, right? They're like, oh my gosh, I get it. I connect. And that's how we connect as human beings, is sharing our truth and our story, not pretending. And when we pretend, it manifests in such negative ways in all areas of our life.
Yeah, it's true. I know once I started sharing I used to feel like once I started sharing my secret, and then other people felt the freedom to come and share theirs with me.
Yeah.
And it just was like a domino effect. And what led me to do this, and as you as well. And it's like you just want to keep on helping people, which we do, to be able to see the light and to be able to not feel that shame anymore. But it feels or sounds ironic, right? Like first you go from like, I don't want anyone to know, to like sharing it. And then once you start sharing it in public, it's almost like you should be more ashamed because you're sharing this now and everyone's knowing, you know what I'm saying? But yet it feels like it does the opposite effect. Because after I'm like, I'm not ashamed, because now I have nothing to hide.
Well, that's the thing. When you don't have anything to hide, you don't either. So I feel, I mean, I don't hide anything, but I feel like if you have nothing to hide and you're showing up in your truth, not just through your words, but through your action, that you are embodied in your truth. And that's really, when you're embodied in your truth, you can show up. And people can throw their stones or whatever. It doesn't matter, because you say, this is who I am, and I like who I am, and I'm comfortable with the humanness within me, my shadow side. I'm comfortable with the mistakes that I've made because I've learned from them. I don't hide from them anymore. And so no, I don't worry about that. I think, to me, that is absolute freedom. And I say this all the time. I can show up on a stage. I can show up with you. I can show up in the yoga room. I can show up with clients. And this is who I am. I don't change or modify who I am. I have no shame. I speak my truth. And that is freedom.
Yes, it is so much freedom.
Yeah.
And then you allow other women to express their freedom when they're in that space with you.
For sure.
You give them
I have a very methodical way of, yes, I hold up the mirror to women and ask them questions and get to the root so they can really, because they're not used to expressing their truth. So that's a lot of the exchange that I have with my clients. And it's really important. I challenge them, and I always say it's in a very loving way, but so they can speak their truth, because most of us aren't. And I said, no, every my clients, I say, this is such a safe space where you can show up fully expressed in all of your humanness, the good, the bad, the dark, the light. This is a space with no judgment, and I invite it all in. And so I create that space for women and men, so they can feel it and experience how empowering it is. And then they take it out into their life. That is my work. Yes.
Yeah. So beautiful. I thank you so much for what you're doing and helping to heal the world, through your work, because, as you help one person heal, that goes on into like their relationships and their family and their children.
Yes, definitely.
So I just really want to acknowledge you and thank you for what you're doing. And it's so much needed. It's so needed, especially nowadays. And, like you said, it's hard to show up and be yourself when you are in that cloak of shame.
Yes.
You don't want anyone to see you. And it's a lonely place. I can speak from experience. It's so lonely because not only do you not connect with people, you really avoid getting into relationships, and you feel like you have to be someone you're not.
Exactly.
And so you're not accepting yourself, and therefore how can anyone else accept you?
Right. Yeah. You have to accept and love who you are so you can show up in your truth in all aspects of life. And especially, like I said, it's a huge part of, I'm a love and relationship coach, and all life mirrors, all relationships mirror the relationship you have with yourself. So if you are showing up not in your truth and in shame, then that is what life will mirror back to you, and you will have relationships that are not authentic
and not healthy,
more attractive and beautiful and just true than someone showing up as their human self. I mean, that's what's beautiful to me.
Yeah, because we all make mistakes.
Oh my gosh,
We all, and that's the thing about judgment. I always say, like, who can judge me when they're not perfect either? It's just that what I've done and made different from what you've done, but you're no better than I am. Like, we're all the same. We're all human. We all mess up. But it's what you do with that. And I hear through your words that a big part of it is healing that. It's healing it. Because when you heal it, then it's kind of like an open wound, and it's just gushing out and pussy. But when you heal yourself, that part of you, then you're able to be whole again. Mm-hmm. And your approach to working with people is, I think, all wholeness, right? Holistic approach.
Yes, it's a holistic approach. But I do want to say too, Michelle, that we are all whole right now.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Okay. We were born as pure love. And so we are all love and we are whole. It's just that it's again, our beliefs and our conditioning and, that keep us from experiencing our wholeness. So that's what I say to every client. And sometimes there are tears right from the beginning as you're whole right now and you are love right now. I'm just going to help, strip away these beliefs that keep you from that, allow you to lean into the dark side, the shame, your humanness, and then hold yourself with such compassion and love and forgive yourself, forgive your parents. So you're whole right now. I just wanted to make sure that was
Thank you. Yes. Thank you so much for bringing that out. I love that. Thank you so much. Is there anything else that you want to share in relation to anything that pertains to what we've been talking about?
Well, I could go on and on because this is my love and passion. I live it, breathe it. I do know that, especially society we live in, everyone wants a quick fix. and I know the work I do it's the deep inner work, but it's sustainable. It's life changing, and it's forever. And it's, so I want people that hear this to know that the inner work, it's not easy, and you'll go through ups and downs, but it is so healing, and it's so powerful, and it's so beautiful. And that's why I do this work, and so that's what I would say to people is start today, whatever, start with really looking at yourself and holding yourself with that love, your humanness, and know that it's a lifelong journey. But that's what this life is about. This one precious life is growing and evolving, and it's not a quick fix. And I don't know. I could go on and on about it because I'm so passionate about it. Yes, that's what I would say.
What do you think is one thing that holds people back from not wanting to do that inner work, not wanting to make the time or invest the time in themselves? What do you think is the biggest obstacle that you see from preventing people from actually taking that baby step by like reaching out to you? Like, what have you found is that block or that thing that's holding them back from not wanting to do the work?
Because there are so many Band-Aids in life, and even in this spiritual collective. I mean, right now, I think there's so many Band-Aids, and I'm not about Band-Aids. And so, but everyone's still looking for a Band-Aid, but wondering why they're in the spot. So I would say that first, but also fear, because, I really have to face those parts of myself. And yet I take them through with such love and compassion that I think that it works well. Most of us, even though we are stuck in dysfunction or we're not living what we want, we stay there because it's comfortable, and the unknown and the uncertainty, that's uncomfortable. Most of us don't want to lean into that discomfort. And so again, my approach is with such love and compassion that I help my clients. I'm by their side every part of the journey. But it is, I think it's the fear of the unknown and the fear of change, because fear of change means that I have to strip away identities. I have to strip away beliefs. I have to lean into something different. So I believe it's fear, fear is always. And that's why I always say, well, how about the fear of I always say to my clients, is talking in 10 years and being in the same place, talking in 20 years, being in the same place. And so knowing that you are so worthy, that's a thing too, is a lot of people don't feel they're worthy. They think this is just who I am, or this is good as it gets. So I say, no, you are so worthy. Your heart's desire, what you feel, what you want, that is your roadmap for what is meant for you. That absolutely. So, worthiness is also. So I think it's a fear and worthiness. And that's why I'm like, I'm going to hold up this mirror of how worthy you are. So I think it's those things. And I just said a mouthful, but really through the years of doing this, that is it. Feeling worthy of investing in yourself to do the work also. It takes time, it takes money, it takes the right person. Yeah.
For me, I think when I think back, before I went through my inner work and my healing from my abortion, when I looked back and thought, why did I wait? Well, it wasn't really intentionally waiting, but I just pushed down. No, not right now. Not, eventually it'll go away, but it didn't. Like you said, talk 10 years, 20 years, it's still there, still feels the same. Nothing's changed. But what held me back was I didn't want to go through those feelings again. I didn't want to re-feel that feeling that I felt, you see? And I thought if I were to hear that and think about doing the inner work, I was scared, like you said, again, fear, because I didn't want to feel the pain again.
Well, you were feeling it on a level every day, or you were feeling it for all those years. Okay. And the best way, and I say, you have to feel, you have to move through, you have to go through it to move beyond it. So that is actually with all emotions, with all things. And so you actually prolonged your suffering as we We stay stuck in a cycle of suffering because we hold on to these things, or we suppress them, repress them. So that is why, if we can, like I said, hold ourselves with such love and compassion in our humanness and feel what we feel, we can move beyond it. We can be free of it. And that is the work. And that's why I speak to that constantly. Because if you had met me, 20 years ago or whatever, I would have helped you move through that in such a way. And then you'd be free from it. And yet, it's part of your story. I get that. But that is the truth. When we hold on, when we numb, avoid, we create our suffering.
Oh, I did. And the consequences that were there were huge. And I think that's why when I finally became a mother, I realized that I don't want to be a mother holding on to this. And, I knew it was affecting the way I would parent. And that's actually what motivated me to start my journey of healing. And yeah, I wish I would have met you 20 years ago, so because I look back and I think, wow, and that's why I do what I do. And that's why you do what you do. So people don't have to go through this for 10, 20 years until they're on their deathbed realizing, I should have dealt with this, and I would have been able to live such a more beautiful life if I had done
been
that.
Beautiful. So don't regret any of it. Don't regret any of it. But yes, it is a choice, and it is leaning into that discomfort. And yet, like I said, and my clients get it when they finally get there. It's freedom. It's freedom.
Oh,
it really is. That is my work.
That is the goal, right?
And so I'm so glad you're free of that and sharing your truth as well.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So if someone wants to work with you, how can they get in touch with you? What's the best way to reach out to you and find out more information about you?
Thank you for asking. Well, it's Karli Kershaw. And on Instagram, it's Karli Kershaw, professional love and relationship coach on Facebook. And that's my website too, Karli Kershaw. So it's pretty mainstream, just right there. You can find me. I love doing, I always give a complimentary call. I want to hear people's stories. I love connecting that way and see if it's a good fit, because I feel energetically that I need to be sure that I'm aligned with my clients and that they're ready to do the work, because I go deep. So you can find me that way. Karli.
So I know you work with people for their self-love and all that, but when you say relationship, and love, is that also about other relationships, like marriage or divorce or, any type of relationships as well?
Yes. No, like I said, I'm a relationship coach, but it's the relationship you have with yourself is reflected in everything. So, I mean, I work with men too, but I mostly work with women. I work with women around their money stories and finance and career. But it seems to be over the last 10 to 12 years I've been doing this, is that the common theme was relationships, because relationships are the fabric of our life, right? And all of us want this loving, respectful, passionate relationship. And yet we find it like it's this elusive unicorn or something up there. And yet it's really not. It's all, we bring all of our stuff, like I've been talking about, our conditioning into relationship. And yet relationships are our greatest opportunity to heal. So that is where I focus on. But I've actually worked with couples because I help people that are going into dating, that are in relationship, create a really conscious container where we know we are human beings, right? We're human beings bringing our stuff. And so really learning language around that, learning our attachment styles, learning boundaries, all of those things. So yes, I work with individuals, I've worked with couples, and I know that I have worked with so many women that know they want a relationship, but they deny themselves that because they don't feel worthy of it, right? And so that is part of the healing and getting them there. And then I get them out in dating and doing it in a way that they can find a partner that is truly aligned to their core values and their vision, what they want. So I'm also a holistic nutritionist. So we work on body image, we work on, lifestyle choices. Yes.
And do you still do yoga classes?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I had a studio for 10 years. I've been teaching for 18, 19 years. during COVID, I've been doing a lot of, Zoom calls, and now we just started doing them in the park. So yes, that's where this all started too, is like I said, yoga, the philosophy of yoga, it's really stripping away all that. So that's where stripping away our conditioning. And so that's where it all started for me, is my yoga practice.
Wow. So, so beautiful. God, I could just talk to you all afternoon. But it's like the time just flew by. But is there anything that I have not asked you that you would like to talk about before we wrap it up?
No, I think I'm covered it. I just want to talk to your audience. I want them to hear me and hear me from my heart that, you are so worthy of love. You are so worthy of being seen and heard, and your humanness and the things you hold in shame are what make you beautiful, that make you wiser. So to hold yourself with such love and compassion, and forgive yourself for buying into any belief around that you're not good enough, or that the mistakes that you made you less than, because that is not true. So hear me. You are so worthy. You are so loved. And you're worthy of that. And that is the beginning of our healing. So this one precious life, do not deny yourself what is yours, because it's all there for you when you believe.
Amen. I can't. There's no better way than to wrap it up with that. So I'm just going to leave it at that. And I invite anyone who's listening to please follow Karli. I will have all of her contact information in the show notes. And please do the work with her or someone, and be able to live a life that you truly do treasure. And that's what this is all about. And I just thank you so much, Karli, for coming here, for showing up, for being yourself, for being an example to women that they can be beautiful on the outside and the inside, and they can live a beautiful life all at the same time. And you're a living, shining example of that. And I just want to thank you for your time and your expertise that you've shared, and just sharing your heart with us and shining a light into those dark areas for people to see that there is always a way out. I really thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be connected.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Life is a Treasure podcast. I'm Michelle Durand, and I'd like to personally invite you to join us and continue the conversation in our free Facebook group, Life is a Treasure podcast. The link will be in the show notes at lifeisatreasure.com. You can also find my social media links on the website as well. Please reach out to me and introduce yourself. I'd love to hear where you're listening from and what your biggest takeaways have been. And as we begin to share our secrets, our stories, and our struggles, we find that others can have the courage to start sharing theirs. And this is how the healing process begins. So please help us spread the hope and the healing to others by subscribing, reviewing, and sharing this podcast. And make sure to tag me on Instagram at Michelle Marie with 2 E's, Durand, Durand, with hashtag Life is a Treasure podcast for a chance to get a shout out on the show. And also visit lifeisatreasure.com for all the resources and freebies mentioned. We believe that everyone is equal and worthy of healing and unconditional love. And we promise that if you invest your time and energy to do the inner work, you too can transform yourself and create a life that is a treasure, so you can live authentically, love unconditionally, and laugh wholeheartedly. And until next week, peace, love, and joy.